Hi, I'm Maggie, and I'm starting us off for our local community issue project. My group and I decided to talk about parking for our issue. To just get a little bit of background on the parking at UK, this is according to the Adventures of Parking at UK by Kentucky Colonel article. But every student, undergraduate, graduate, they must enter a raffle system to get these tickets. To enter this raffle, it's like a lottery system, and these are chosen at random, so it doesn't matter if you are a commuting student, if you're a graduate student, or like a freshman. Every student is just put into the same lottery. You can select like your preferred parking lot or spot wherever, and most everybody will choose one of our on-campus parking garages. For every student who does not get the garage pass, they will have to move their car to Kroger Field, which is arguably the least convenient spot to be on campus. That is not by many of the student buildings, not by any of the dorms. And also another issue with parking at Kroger Field is on game days you're required to move your car, which is just super inconvenient because they will either have to find a spot in one of the garages or just like anywhere they can. I know friends personally who have had to struggle with that on game days, moving their car, and this is about 10,000 people who are parking and having to move their car. Another issue with this is the parking pass does not guarantee a spot. This is a big issue for students who are commuting because if they have a class at 1, they should not be expected to have to show up an hour and a half early to get a spot for like a busy class day. They should just be expected to come to school, park, and that should be it. But unfortunately for a lot of students, that is not the case. If they are fighting for a spot in Kroger Field, they know they have a 25-minute walk to the next class. An article by Kentucky Colonel called Limited Parking at UK Impacts Students also discusses how recent construction has limited spots even more, as a lot called Orange Lot is now unavailable to students. And this is just a big issue because these are already expensive spots, roughly $300 for a parking pass, on top of students' tuition, on top of just everything that students have to buy. So these are expensive parking passes that students are expected to pay. They are not guaranteed a lot. If they have a lot, they're walking 30 minutes to class unless they are one of the fortunate ones to have those very limited resources that are the on-campus parking garages, which are not, it's like less students have those spots than is necessary. So I think that UK definitely needs to work on expanding where the kids can park. They need to figure out something better with having students having to move their cars on game days, because if that is happening to you every single weekend, that is just going to take up a lot of your time. It obviously takes up a lot of money to pay for these passes to not even be sure if you're going to be guaranteed one. And yeah, so that is just the attention and need part of this, and my group members will say the rest.
How do we provide a solution for the parking issues on the University of Kentucky's campus, and how are we going to be able to satisfy all the people that need to use their cars, park on campus, and just get on with their day-to-day lives while using the parking spots on campus? So firstly, we believe a proper solution to these parking issues would be to lower the parking spots on campus. According to the UK Now website, parking spots can go anywhere from $130 a semester for the most remote spots, and then $500 for the more accessible spots on campus. And these spots aren't including the visitor lots that you'd have to pay daily for. So we believe that these numbers are just outrageous to ask of students that already have to pay thousands of dollars just to attend the university and just to possibly live on campus for most students. And we just think that these numbers should absolutely be lowered to create less financial stressors for students as well as families. So we think that parking spots should be no more than $80 a semester, or a year, and then no less than $20 a year. Secondly, we believe that commuting students and staff should be allowed to pick their parking spots beforehand and before all students and staff that will be living on campus. If you don't know, the University of Kentucky uses a queue that opens on the same day for everyone, and everyone is just first come, first serve with their parking spots, and it's very unfair to a lot of commuting students. So 2 people in our group were also involved in this queue, and they were left with just the worst parking spots on campus, and that leads to a lot of missing classes or running late to classes because your walks are so far, and it's just very difficult for a lot of commuting students to pick what was left of the queue. So our solution is making their own queue and getting their own queue for all commuting students and staff, so they can also have a fair shot at good parking just like all of the other students and staff that live on campus. And finally, we do hope that someday in the future we can add to some of the construction on campus, and hopefully some of the construction can be parking spots. We hope that there can be lots outside of dorms and bigger lots outside of lots of the buildings, and we just hope that overall parking can become a lot more affordable and accessible on the University of Kentucky's campus.
Hey, so I'm here to talk about the visualization aspect of our plan, and I'm going to go through the potential successes and the potential failures. So first off, for success, the biggest one would see an extended window for purchase of parking passes, and that would basically include commuters and those who live off campus and require that transportation to the parking lots around UK would have earlier access to obtain a parking pass, as opposed to people who live in dorms that are located on campus, because we believe that if you live full-time on campus, generally you won't be needing your car as much, and we want to give priority to those who use their cars every single day. And next up, commuter and off-campus equity, which really falls in line with that obtaining access earlier, but it would also see certain alterations to the big parking lots around campus, such as in Blue Lot. Anybody with a Blue Lot pass can park wherever they want, and in my experience as a daily commuter, whenever I park there, usually all of the people who have residential passes park up front, right next to the bus station, and so that forces the rest of the commuters to go all the way back and worry about having to find that space, or potentially having to go up by the baseball stadium and park in one of the overflow lots up there. And so that can really add a lot of stress to your daily commute. So equity in that sense would see those who have residential passes having to park in the back to leave spaces for the daily commuters. So it can help ease some of that early morning stress and worrying about having to add the extra time to walk from, say, the baseball stadium down to the bus station by Kroger Field. Now, for the failures, we could see increased wait times. Like I said, especially trying to find parking. That has taken many minutes out of my mornings. And you would also see drops in attendance. And some research has shown, especially with Anthony Schwetter of Trellis Research, he said, quote, "Students who are unable to reliably commute to their college campuses stand to fall behind or even drop out altogether." And that is because it's so much easier to just stay home when you have to worry about so many outstanding factors in order to just get to class. Like me, myself, I have to wake up at minimum an hour and a half before each of my classes, and even still, I still have to worry about parking. I even received a parking ticket last week because there was a concert going on, and my entire lot that I park in was completely blocked off, so I had to find somewhere else. and I did not happen to have the proper permit for that, but I still had to get to class.
Yo, what's up? It's Hunter. And I got action out of the Monroe's Motivated Sequence. So, what is action? Action is quite literally what it sounds like. It's, doing something. It's acting out on something, whether it be a thought, a decision that's made by somebody else. But it's something that you have to do, right? You have to get up and do it. To fix parking, it has to start with students. Students have to, help advocate for better parking options, better parking infrastructure. Just, they have to go out and, basically just let people know let people know that there is a problem, let people know that there are ways to fix it, let people know that, there is something that could be done. How do they do this, you might ask? Well, they could do this by, maintaining communication with certain people. Certain people meaning, you have your UK recreations, not recreations, but campus transportation office. You could get in contact with them, and they might be able to help. They might be able to, do something maybe in the future. But you have to be in communication with them for them to even know that there's a problem, They're not just going to fix something that they don't know needs fixing. So, therefore, getting out, advocating, communicating, just talking to people, and spreading the word, that can help people get an idea that there is a struggle on campus of parking. That can help people, push that message out there to people that, might not know it yet, that need to know it, like the people at the transportation office. Well, that's a really good one, but you might ask, what other things could they do? Well, they could also advocate for certain things, right? It's not just a broad subject here. There are specific things that you could talk about, they could advocate for extra parking passes or some of the other things that were mentioned up in the slides before. Really, you got to get out there and you got to advocate. You got to communicate with people. You got to talk to people. You have to just let the situation be known so that it can be fixed. I read an article. It's on the bestsellingcarsblog.com, and it talks about certain solutions that students could do, but it also talks about that nothing could have happened if the students hadn't brought it to light. So that gave me some insight on that it does start with the students. It does start with people getting out and spreading the word about the parking problems. There's also an article that I read by the LaSalle Falconeer.com, and it's a high school article, so I know it's a little different, but it talks about it gives good insight on certain parking solutions, why you might need to have parking solutions, what problems might be, but it also is written by a student. That gives me that gave me something that I would like to share. You could go out there and write an article. You could write an article, you could publish it, you could, find a way to write something about the problems, which also goes back to communicating with, people. It goes back to that. You have to let it be known and bring it to light.